welcome back to Identity Insights by Indicio. I'm your host, Tim Spring, and today I'm joined by Indicio software engineer Colton Wolkins to discuss the recent work he's been doing on SocketDock. Thank you for joining me today, Colton. Would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, hi, my name is Colton Wolkins, and I've been a software engineer for about as long as I can remember, starting my software engineering journey in fourth grade, just learning everything I could by myself without any formal education, just like just like the great engineers of old. And here I am today working on amazing foundational technology.
Awesome. Well, yeah, very excited to have you here and talking with us today. So, in your own words, could you tell me what is SocketDock?
SocketDock allows for multiple WebSocket communications to be established to a backend service and allowing the backend service to communicate back to the client who made the WebSocket connection.
All right. And would you be able to give us an example of what that might look like when an actual consumer is, using SocketDock?
So an example of such a use case would be if you have, say, a million cell phone users who need to access your service, but you need to deliver a message between two of them, and you don't know which backend service that is handling the request. SocketDock allows you to communicate back to whichever device you need to talk back to without running everything through one bottlenecked connection.
All right. So, if you could unpack that a little bit for me, what do you mean when you say bottlenecked? Is that kind of how it is now? Everything goes through one particular connection?
So when using a web service such as the ACPI Cloud Agent or Aries Cloud Agent Python, you'll tend to have one agent servicing all of the requests. When you split that out so that multiple agents can handle the request, they don't know how to communicate back to the to a specific connection that is connected to, say, a different service in the backend.
Okay.
And by having the SocketDock service in place in between, it allows you to, instead of having like one guy who knows all of where all the connections are, you can communicate back to whichever SocketDock process is handling the connection to communicate to the client.
Okay. So, if I could summarize real quick, it sounds like what it does is it increases the speed of communication and allows everyone to know what's going on, right? As opposed to one kind of mediating party. Is that kind of correct?
Correct in a sense, and it also prevents that single mediator that you mentioned from being a single point of failure. So if that one agent or that one mediator goes down, you lose all of your connections, not just the handful that were connected to the one guy.
All right. No, it sounds pretty useful. So, sorry to try to summarize again, it's more secure, right? Because it's not just that single point of failure. It has, is it faster as well? Is that correct to say than going through all one point, or is that just like a more redundant layer kind of deal?
I would have to say yes and no. It definitely depends on your use case because obviously adding in a new service in between is going to add some slowness. But when you take it into consideration where you are spreading things out across many services, if you were to have it all be on one central service, which might work for a handful of users, that's obviously going to be faster to just communicate directly to the service. But if you have a million users all talking to that one service, he's going to get bogged down. He's going to start having failures just because of the immense traffic coming toward them.
All right. So then, yeah, the main thing would be like reliability and scalability is what SocketDock is for. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
to probably over summarize there. So who would be using this? Who is kind of the end user of SocketDock? Is it for engineers? Is it for, obviously the people benefiting at the end customer level?
So obviously, while the end customers, the end users are going to be the ones who benefit the most from it, what the end users, the people actually using the software, are not going to be your end customers. They're going to be either your developers or your DevOps engineers, your IT, the people who are setting up your networking infrastructure. And they will be using it to allow the back underlying architecture to scale out to provide the speed and reliable service even when you have a mass influx of traffic.
All right, makes sense. So, where is SocketDock today? Is it usable now? Could I go, try it for myself somewhere?
Yes, you can go ahead and actually use it now. It's open, 100% open source. The entire thing is on the Hyperledger GitHub account. So the URL for that would be github.com/hyperledger/Aries-SocketDoc. And there's a README there. You can download it, start it up. It's a Docker container, and you're good to go.
All right, sounds good. So, right, like you mentioned, it's an open source project. I'm curious, right, if people want to get involved, when are the meetings and, how easy is it to kind of become involved in the project?
As far as people getting involved in the project, since it is under the Aries label, under the Hyperledger Foundation, if you look for the Aries Working Group meetings, you should be able to find out more there and be able to get involved. Even without that, submitting an issue, submitting a pull request, and those will get looked at, and that's another way to get involved.
So right, you said the project's kind of usable today. Are there any is there any further work being done? Are there any new features coming out? Development work that needs to be done, or is it kind of in maintenance now? Where is the project at? If you could summarize that for me a little bit.
So the overall scope of SocketDoc is just the bare bones. I have all these connections that are WebSockets and I need to proxy them to this other service. All of that work is done. All of that bare bones work is done. So I feel like it's more in maintenance mode. I don't know of any other features off the top of my head that could be worked on. One of the ways to get involved as well is submitting issues and pull requests into the project, fixing bugs and what have you. And if there's some feature that you think would help you and it's not in the core project, let us know. Like submit an issue or submit a pull request to see if we can get that in there to help solve not only your need but anyone else with a similar need to yours.
All right, perfect. Well, it looks like that is about our time for the day. If you are interested in learning more about verifiable credentials at home, please be sure to subscribe to the channel and we'll continue to bring you some more educational content. If you have any questions or specific topics that you'd like for us to cover, please leave a comment below. I'll be sure to read and address them. And thank you again to you, Colton. We'll be sure to put a link to the Aries Working Group in the description. If someone was interested in learning a bit more about the technology, where would you suggest they look?
I would certainly suggest going to the working group to find out how others are using it, to go ahead and try it. If you have a need for scalability and WebSockets, give it a try. You're not going to find out if it works for you or not unless you try it. And it's already out there, open source. You can try it today.